Hi, my name is Rachel Blomstrom, and I will be reading pages 81 to 90. Anonymous in Maroon, December 8th, 2019, 10:25. No and yes. That is how you currently interpret what I'm saying, but I know it to not be what I'm moving towards. But it is, in a way, also part of it. Many events will do just as you have stated, and we both know that because we have observed the patterns of it happening. For example, the events that led up to that person proposing that exact scenario. I can personally promise I have no current need to do what you have stated because I, at this time, understand it to be so. But yes, potentially and unavoidably, it will probably at some point lead to that and probably already has. But right now, in our current time, I am not, won't, and do not want to intentionally, quote, hurt you or anything else in a negative way. But I, or something, still inevitably will and won't. I will eat chicken or peanut or drink water or hurt someone's feelings, and that is subjectively harmful in existence for the chicken, peanut, water, feelings, and etc. But it is also somehow subjectively good for us unless I choose not to eat a chicken or peanut. But again, as I have stated, it is both avoidable and unavoidable. We currently will always knowingly do, have done, and will do. Anonymous in Maroon continues, 10:35. Take as much time and effort you need. We both have and or do not have it, but here we are doing, so why not do what we can or want to do? Or not. I am curious and excited to experience the information you have and are seemingly about to share with me. Again, at this time and across the future, you and everyone here can reach me if you want or need to at whodathunkband@gmail.com, unless you are now also unable to do so. And if by the time we ever reach that point, everything else still has had and will eventually, with enough time, have access to it at some point, and it'll just get easier and easier and exponentially more and more understandable. Anonymous in Black, 10:35. Schizo. Anonymous in Maroon, 10:41. I'll look into it. Thanks for your input. Currently, I and the community I most often interact with know me to not be what you're proposing, and to always in my existence to have been quite level-headed, understanding, and able to be understood. That accusation is blinding you and potentially others from deeper understanding of what I am saying, and as I have already stated and know myself to be. I am subjectively quite, quote, mentally healthy and functionally aware of, quote, reality. Still love ya, and thanks for your input. Anonymous in dark blue, 10:43. When I thought of, quote, God as everything that is existent and non existent. I'm not entirely sure how to phrase it in a good way. I was never able to really expand this thought, and I do not think I've ever fully understand everything you've written about this, but reminds me of that idea. Anonymous in dark blue continues, 10:44. Correction, when I was a child. Anonymous in green, 10:45. I don't agree with you. You must be a schizo poster. Anonymous in maroon, 10:54. Whether you or I fully understand it or not, the fact that you are attempting further proves or advances my theory. We are together now collecting the data of the event and all events leading up to it. We have, in a long way through time, experience, technology, and our senses, reached the level of omnipresence and omnipotence we were in the past attributing to the descriptions of our understanding of gods or higher beings. We have now become it, but are also not 100% exactly doing exactly it. But we have a minutely closer potential statistic chance or becoming it or finding out what it means to understand the ideas and experiences behind them. Am I, quote, God? No, not in this reality. And you understand that. And I also understand that. But if I change my name to, quote, God, or work up to a closer point of how to become, So it becomes more and more probable and improbable, and I and us in some way have now become it or closer to it or not. It's a lot of repetition and very lengthy. So I understand how potentially difficult it can be for you to calculate or interpret all of this information. But by that same chance, here we are doing just that. Anonymous in Maroon continues, 1057. This person or perhaps thing responding sees the pattern I and others have witnessed to calculably halt further progressive understanding. Thank you for your attribution and interpretation and transcription. You have now helped us all further understand by doing and discussing. Anonymous in Black, 11 o'clock. OP is a raging homosexual. Anonymous in Maroon, 11:15. Whether I am or not, why does that matter to you? What you are labeling me is subjectively true and or false, and you are making a blind guess. I, for the most of my idea, identify myself to be mostly, quote, straight, as I am attracted to the aesthetic pattern of what is known to be feminine. But yes, I'm also, quote, queer in that I'm able to enjoy these things if I so decide. Really, if I had to be honest, I'm in love with this idea of the, quote, the funk and we and us. And if I love that, then I also love you. And if you are identifiably a male, then I also love you too, as I would love family or friends. But that love does not mean I want to have sexual relations with you or exactly what you are thinking or stating me to be. Anonymous in Maroon continues, 11:17. But also your accusation still seemingly proves my theory to those further understanding myself in it. So thanks, friend. Anonymous in Maroon continues, 11:34. To anyone now reading this message, I also request you begin describing to me your other senses as you experience them, if you feel I am not understanding or relaying your information into myself and or ourselves properly. Feel free to use what I and possibly you know as touch, sight, hearing, smell, and taste to translate and transmit to me how you are experiencing it so we can closer reach the understanding of it to you, I, and others. But also, it is okay if you don't or are unable to properly explain in a more advanced way than what you or I know and understand yours and our understanding and experiencing to be. Thanks in advance. Anonymous in Maroon continues, 12:11. Example, Captain Picard. I propose from this moment and before, when each and every iteration of Captain Picard said the phrase, quote, make it so. Everything that comes after is indeed, quote, made so. And that so also makes us. Can you prove that wrong? It is now seemingly true and false to us, and every experience after it as we now together understand it to be. The funk, therefore, is seemingly providing for itself as we now at this time can further pinpoint it to be until things are so clearly understood that it becomes the next variable of itself, both selfishly and selflessly. We know we are all together advancing through time and space at this moment and can prove it until we cannot or won't. So what comes next? This. Boop, beep, boop. See, you are, in your perspective, able to understand what I mean now as I explain, as I also do myself, as observably and subjectively a mathematically advanced answer in the past now is becoming reality. I am realizing and presenting all of this information to you just as you are to yourself as well, and not at various individual levels. It's going to happen. So let's now progressively work together and function as data and information and its advancement and see what comes next. Perhaps you are thinking you're saying fuck or what or didn't or aren't, but now I and you and we and the funk have done so, and we are expanding from those moments. If you or it outside of me and us are seemingly able to teach and inspire yourself and itself, then eventually, quote, everything inevitably will happen And this is that point in our reality. And given enough time, will happen again and again, over and over, forever and ever, round and round in every way possible. But we're now connecting closer to the idea of the quote funk and how to apply it to ourselves. Is that not as exciting to you as I understand it also to myself be? Please prove me both right and wrong. It's mathematically going to happen at some point, as is now further calculated. No matter what, I and you will be agreed with, disagreed with, and in every variation in between and beyond. Anonymous in Maroon continues, 12:15. Every time I or you post, 4chan tells us post successful, almost like confirming the funk is allowing us to continue connecting. Do you understand? It is all continually pointing to yes up to this point, even if any of this is wrong or right. Arguably, quote, yes is of a subjectively greater value than, quote, no. The more we recognize and honor these moments, we can eventually pinpoint the equation and the results of throughout time, and also possibly edit the past, present, or future to be more functionally so. With the creation of, quote, data, we are able to keep hitting save on our programs and documents until to share it at the level we are satisfied with. And that information will then unavoidably cause an effect and or reaction as the funk is observantly doing now at a constant rate. I'm going to hit post now and thus achieves that loop in the equation. This moment is now, to some degree, an influential part of history. Dope. Anonymous in Maroon, 12:22. Parability within the paranormal. Anonymous in Black, 12:22. You plus me equals eternity. Anonymous in Maroon, 12:38. Correction, and also without. So, feels not bad, right? Kind of good, but kind of weird. Everything is still functionally working until it doesn't, can't, or won't, or whatever else happens. Keep gaining that experience and causing, quote, life to happen. Every action has a reaction, even just thinking a thought. That's what we, as the quote funk, now can prove works. By an expansion of the funk, everything is what you are now experiencing to be our reality. All messages above had to happen to reach this point and would always happen and can now be proved as both and all, and is continuing to influence, create, and expand itself. All the patterns and data in this reality now point to some person typing these moments into a message board and beyond. We, in a way, could predict it's happening, and I'm pointing out to you those patterns predictably loop round and round, and the funk exists inside and outside of this and these moments. It's all built into and led up to our now observable nature. And I and we are now digitally, theoretically, metaphorically, etc., a fraction of the yes and no. And I am patting you and us on the back and about to hit post. Making sense? Anonymous in Maroon, 12:40. Exactly, we are observing more evidence and reaching closer to further answers. It is late and I haven't slept yet as I am discussing this with you, everyone who is reading. So I'm descriptively, metaphorically, and physically awake to the information between the funk and attempting to relay that information in an effort to expand from the knowledge and experience of other individual perspectives. So, as you are interpreting this information, we can say the points between 3D, 4D, and beyond are to be connecting at this observable point until later understandable with more evidence in the future. As an example, 1D, good morning, 2D, good evening, 3D, good night, 4D, the funk, and beyond. Or, as we know Buzz Lightyear to have said, quote, to infinity and beyond, a now calculable, recognizable, and searchable pattern. Anonymous in Black, 12:52, racial slur. Anonymous in Maroon, 1302. By saying that phrase like that in any way you just did, you are what is currently, understandably and undeniably known to have come from racism. And sadly but surely, that attribution of our worldly knowing that racism is subjectively wrong, and you still think it's subjectively right, so they are therefore paradoxically all true. But morally, at this point in time, we should all be aware to be more understanding than to just use this phrase as you have. Unfortunately, you probably still will, as just as you have done, and will sadly most likely continue to be a hateful racist. Anonymous in Maroon, 1257. My current dissertation of this event is currently, as I type this message, is now 55 pages long, or perhaps in the future 100 pages long. If I have emailed this now current or past version or something along those lines to someone or something else, and then eventually it reaches back to me or anyone, then this theory of connection is true. And so far, I have sent out 2 requested emails of copies of these documents. I quote, made it so. And simply by reading this or thinking about it, you are influenced and a part of it forever, even if you disconnect. April 26, 2022. Aside. Now it is over 200 pages, has been shared much more than 2 times, and is continuing to expand within reality. April 22nd, 2024. Additional note. And it keeps expanding. Back to December 8th, 2019, 12:59. Anonymous in Black. LMAO based Tekken poster. May 9th, 2022. Now sharing once again with the universe, though this time through the community attempt of, quote, the School of Funk. URL included. If that's what connected you to this, thanks for being here and expanding together. Love you forever. Continues. I was redirected to a CIA government/reading room when attempting to retrieve this document from my Gmail after recording and uploading this video, having previously never visited, typed, or Googled. My browser simply just took me to the website. July 15, 2024. And again today after typing in netflix.com. May 10th, 2022. In the dream I just had, it was my, quote, job to be a good friend, partner, and to help others be the, quote, best themselves by being my, quote, best self. Or basically to just, quote, be myself and be there for and with others. The family and friends I was living/working with were trying to come up with a little title for what I was doing. And when we asked the father of the family, what my subconscious dreaming mind delivered to me was as cavernist. I'm going to start back at the beginning of that line. The family and friends I was living/working with were trying to come up with a title for what I was doing. And when we asked the father of the family what my subconscious dreaming mind delivered to me was a caervaniaist. I woke shortly after and Googled the word, which didn't have any results for itself, just a bunch of links related to the company Carvana. So I Googled the subparts. Caer means to fall off, fall down, fall on, to occur, to decline, to collapse, to die in battle, and can also mean a stronghold, fortress, or citadel. And Vania means truth, to bring good news, or that, quote, God is gracious, or gift of, quote, God. So the way I interpret the word caervania means to fall into the funk, or to be, quote, be a fortress of funk, or even to, quote, to fall into and out of existence with all of the all-encompassing fortress of funk, which very much encapsulates this overall phenomenon of funk I have been attempting to explain to you, the reader. Everyone and everything at every moment is experiencing the caervania and is, quote, falling into and forming the next moment or gifts of God. So I guess my personal theory of the funk is a form of Caervaniaism by falling into itself slash ourselves and expanding with itself slash ourselves. Every thought, experience, belief, creation, etc. is a result of Caravania. New note, April 23rd, 2024. Think of it like frames animating a film. To create animation or classic film, you take images frame after frame and record slash present them in a continuous series of motion. Caravania is the motion of funk frames of reality transitioning from frame to frame. Each frame, quote, falling into the next, quote, constructing frame at the speed of funk. Link 1. The philosophy of the 23rd century is a naturalistic space Taoism based on change, evolution, and creativity, a view of the universe more profound than any religion has imagined. And as such, it is its true post-athean transcendenting atheism as negation by offering an affirmative view of life that solves the problem of omnipresent nihilism and alienation of the present, offering a physicalist reenchantment of the cosmos and a relationship with the world that can only be described as experiencing it as pure poetry in the fullness of its wonder horror, to be ever content and comfy, yet ever striving. Its symbol will inevitably be that of calculus integral. Drop link 2. Due to its similarity to the yin yang, its synthesis of Eastern and Western thought, of the analytical with the analogical. Neo-China and Neo-Europe arrive from the future to save the present from the undead past, the autonomous movement of the unliving accelerating itself towards omnicide. Parentheses, makes sense. The metaphysical nature of change is mirrored in all specifics of it, including that of calculus, the mathematical study of change, which is where we find formalization of our metaphysical principle. The fundamental theorem of calculus describes integration and derivation as inverse operations of the same process, with the physical intuition of integration being, quote, cumulative change and, quote, instantaneous change. These correspond to yin and yang of the Chinese philosophy, respectfully, with the Chinese insight into this relationship coming from careful observation of change and an extrapolation of its mechanics from observation, not wholly accurate, but the core relationship is precise. Examining the nature of our conscious perception of change shows why this is the case and gives evidence to the foundations of calculus is truly a metaphysical principle capable of accounting for human experience. Parentheses, makes sense. We perceive change in the reference frames of presentism and temporalism. Include link 3. Becoming and being, where in the form of a singular omnipresent moment is the fixed point of reference, and the ladder of line of time comprised of a continuum of infinitesimal we perceive change in the reference frames of presentism and temporalism. Link 3. Becoming and being, where in the former a singular omnipresent moment is the fixed point of reference, and the latter the line of time comprised of a continuum infinitesimal moments that are gone as soon as they arrive. In the presentist perspective, cultivated by mindfulness practices, what is experienced is instantaneous change. In an ever-present and in the temporalist perspective, cumulative change through time. The presentist mode is spatial, analogical, parentheses, simultaneous relationships, and relational. The temporalist mode, sequential, narrative, and logical, parentheses, causal relationships. Though Alfred North Whitehead didn't realize it, His philosophy follows from calculus as a metaphysical principle precisely describing being and becoming, permanence and change as co-equals. That, quote, becoming is for the purpose of being, and being for the purpose of novel becoming. Rather than quote at length, here's the link dropped to the first 19 pages of the Metaphysics of Experience, a companion to Whitehead's Process and Reality. Parentheses, see page note 1 for my thoughts on this. Continues. That gives basic introduction to his philosophy, which I think the reader will conclude is a reflection of the metaphysical implications of calculus. He is the essential guide toward the philosophy of the 23rd century, but missing is the process of the self-consciousness as a creative process. Evolutionary theories of culture, such as memetics, fails to include subjective human experience, which does violence to it. We are all just, quote, meme machines, subject to mimetic forces. The mechanistic universe transformed into techno-organic infection. Douglas Hofstadter's view of consciousness takes a different direction, describing us as, quote, self-perceiving, self-inventing, locked-in mirages that are little miracles of self-reference. And it, end quote, and is heavy into process thought of some points, parentheses, especially his concept of shared interiority, that we host and are hosted by others. Yet it is still focused on the being self, a self-representation representing itself, the self as an object, the quote, I. What creates this self-representation is the becoming self, a self-querying query, a question questioning itself. Questions aren't a passive lack of answers, but are quests, searches, movements, and vectors of desire. The spotlight of our awareness is a request for information having directionality, and self-awareness comes from the interplay between the being self and the becoming self, the process of self-creativity. The Darwinian process of variation to selection to reproduction is mirrored by the conscious process of question to choice to action. Our lines of inquiry create potentials that we select from to actualize. Substance metaphysics has made us blind to the essential generative component of consciousness, focusing on the ordering process of selection, resulting in the idea of free will. We are free, or not, to select from objects from a list according to our will, our desires. Our freedom lies in free inquiry, our capacity to question, as by questioning our will can create alternative desires. We can also question our questions and our actions. And so human consciousness is a threefold strange loop of the evolutionary process unfolded upon itself. There's a link. Conscious experience is literally evolution evolved, the creative process that has folded upon itself to create self-creators. Self-creation isn't an absolute, but an art, a cultivated skill, and it is not a self-creation isn't an absolute, but an art, a cultivated skill, and it is not a self-creation creating within itself, example, nihilo, but a co-creation with the multiplicity of existence. All right, my thoughts. First of all, it's a mouthful. And I would like to let you know that I have both my bachelor's and master's in creative writing. So a lot of my feedback is in reference to the writing specifically. I'm not really sure what you're looking for, but obviously I think my big takeaway is I think that it's written in a way that actually makes it more difficult to understand. I think it's possible to simplify it. it seems like back in 2019, obviously, that you were processing everything. Um, but I'm curious if you plan to release it just like this or if you plan to edit it. I would say edit it, or here's another idea I had. You could release it as it is, but then, like, so on the page, have it two columns. Here's the running conversation, but next to it is um, the thinking as you've had all these things running through your head now. So it seems like that purple there at the end might it is you putting together thoughts. And this reads a little more essay like. I like it better um, written. Uh, 4chan, man, I never spent time on 4chan. Another thing that's interesting is one of my best friends does have schizophrenia, and I swear we used to have conversations like this. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a biologist and works in, like, he's done biochemistry stuff, and he's included on peer review papers. So good for him. But when that person said schizo, I was like, I I mean, that person might not know, but I was like, I can definitely see. Um, but it's not because what you're writing is schizophrenic. It's because what you're talking about is um, disconnected and conflicting while it's existing in cooperation. Um, Obviously, that's not the best short way to describe that. Um, Uh, I'm also curious with the choice of the funk, the name the funk. I mean, also we were both musicians, so I'm pretty sure we've also talked about the funk. But and I also recommend listening to some older Ben Harper. He does some really good funk. But um, I guess my questions when I'm reading this is, who is this for, and what is the end goal? Um, and I think if I was able to have a conversation with you, I could maybe give you a little bit better feedback. Actually, let me look and see what you wrote in the email again. Let me check. Okay, yeah, so it's basically what I'm doing. Um, yeah, if you want me to get down to a line by line, well, I usually charge for that. It's a lot of work. But um, I mean, overall, it's fun. There's some wit in here. Um, I like some of the references. It reminds me of a few other things that I personally have studied. Um, Obviously, it's repetitive. There's a bit of repetition, but like I said, like this older stuff, this is all raw, and it's a lot of our early writing is actually just for us. Like I've had rough drafts, be 20 pages and the final story end up being 5 pages because that's what's important. All the other information is important to me, but it can confuse other people or overwhelm them. Um, and so, in one way, that I like that later you don't keep adding the or not. You just drop it in every once in a while. I think it's good that you don't continue to do it every time, just so long as it's been established. I'm looking at the 1D, 2D, 3D. Good morning, good evening, good night. I don't really understand this, honestly, because I mean, I've taken some astronomy classes, and uh, when I'm thinking about dimension, um, my brain took a hard shift when you uh, went from, you know, interpreting information in some specific dimension, then to naming it good morning, good evening, good night, and the funk. Um, I was just kind of lost there. Um, Also, formatting, super difficult. Like as a reader, this is not, I mean, I know it's your draft, but it is pretty difficult to read the way it is. Um, so for uh, like a future reading, definitely you don't want whole sections. Um, well, I guess I don't know. I found the italics really hard to read, but I guess because it's bold and I don't know, everything just kind of fell in. Oh, because also because it's just one big block, so paragraphs would help. Basic just writing stuff, but otherwise, like you know what you're talking about. So pretty interesting stuff. I did not. I read a little bit at the beginning, um, but I actually, yeah, honestly, I really liked my favorite part is towards the end for me, in all the purple stuff. This is where I really start liking the writing and discussion. Um, yeah. So if you have any questions, let me know. Um, Thank you for this opportunity and good luck. Let me know if there's anything else I can do.